Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Monday, February 27th, 2023 meeting of the Jersey Village City Council. The time is currently 7 o'clock p.m. Madam Secretary, do we have a quorum of council present?
Yes.
Great, thank you. That brings us on our agenda to invocation and pledge of allegiance by Steve Liu, teaching pastor, Hope Church.
Thank you guys so much. Just want to say how much beyond what we appreciate of everything that y'all do, and just a pleasure to join together in our great city of Jersey Village to pray together and build together. And so just want to invite us into prayer. So let's go and do that. Father, thank you so much that you are good God. You are faithful in all of your ways. And the Bible says that you are gracious and abounding in love, slow to anger, and steadfast in your mercies. And so, Lord, we just praise you because you are a God who is over all the craziness of this world. You're in control. Your will is completely sovereign. And you are a God who doesn't stand on the sidelines, but you are a God who is near us, and you are a God who cares for us, and you are a God who loves us. And you did that all by sending your Son, Jesus Christ, as a sacrifice for our sins, to rise again from the dead, and to bring us your presence, even in the midst of trials. So we thank you, Father. Thank you so much, Jesus, for being in our midst today. And we just pray, oh God, that your pleasure and your presence would be here in this room. God, we give you praise for every single council member and every single leader here in this room, and even the young leaders that I'm seeing in the audience here today. Father, I pray that, first of all, that we would recognize that every breath is from you, and that with every ounce of our being, that we would contribute to the flourishing, to the renewal, and to the joy of the people who are living here in Jersey Village. We pray that we would build together, that you would break down any divisions, and that you would bring us together. And Lord, we just continue to pray for wisdom and for guidance for all of our city council members. We pray, oh God, that you would give them just your God-given wisdom to make the decisions, to be in the posture of learners, to hear from the community, to have compassion for those around them who are hurting. And Lord, just continue to give them and bless them your leadership and your guidance. Thank you so much for Chief Riggs and all that his police department does, and also the fire department and all that they do to protect our citizens here in Jersey Village. And we just praise you. Father, we just pray that you be here in this room and that you would lead every single decision, every single thing that we talk about today. Lord, would just be covered by your Spirit. Thank you, Father. We love you and praise you in Jesus' name. Amen. And will you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Put your hands on the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated.
Great, thank you very much. That brings us to presentation of Employee of the Month, Austin Blease, City Manager.
Mayor and councilors and residents, I'm excited to introduce Kimberly Murphy, who is our February 2023 Employee of the Month. Kimberly, come on up. Kim has developed structured, easy-to-understand procedures for handling all of the evidence and storing evidence for the police department. This decreases liability for the city and the police department by ensuring all evidence is easily accounted for. Kim has recently begun assisting the Criminal Investigations Division by making phone calls to the crime victims to update them on the status of the cases. This allows the detectives to focus on the investigations, not making the administrative phone calls. Kim represents the police department at a lot of city events, including the National Night Out and the open house, without hesitation. She always volunteers. When she took over as property technician, there were years of evidence which needed to be disposed. This caused the property room to be cluttered and unorganized, making it hard to find anything for court or other legal proceedings. She immediately went to work with the Harris County DA's office, obtaining the proper court orders, allowing her to dispose of the old property. The property room is now top-notch. It looks great. Kim also began working with the other property room technicians in Harris County to find the best practices and to navigate the criminal justice system for more efficient ways to obtain destruction orders for on-hand property and evidence. She routinely makes herself available to officers to process evidence to allow them to get back on the streets in a timely manner, including during her off times. She holds an advanced certificate through the Texas Association of Property and Evidence and Inventory Technicians, which is the highest level of certification offered. And during the last conference, Kim was selected as an instructor for the new property room technicians. We're definitely lucky to have Kim with us here. Congratulations, Kim, and thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Do you want the box? Thanks.
Congratulations, Kimberly. That brings us to citizens' comments. Citizens who have signed a card and wish to speak to the City Council will be heard at this time in compliance with the Texas Open Meetings Act. Unless the subject matter of the comment is on the agenda, the City staff and City Council members are prevented from discussing the subject and may respond only with statements of factual information or existing policy. Citizens are limited to 5 minutes for their comments to the City Council. The first comment card I have is from Avery Ayers.
Good evening, Mayor Warren, City Council. I stand before you as a former student who attended Post Elementary, Dean Junior High, and Jersey Village class of '85. I am also a black man, a disabled vet, a paralegal, and a homeowner within the community of Jersey Village. The events of December 22nd, 2022, by the Jersey Village Police Department against a young black male was horrible and a shameful act by 3 police officers. Have you seen the video? I've sent it to a young lady tonight for you guys. I asked the chief for police, Mr. Riggins, to fire those officers tonight. If he doesn't fire them, I'm asking you, Mayor Warren, to fire him and them, because this is a shame upon Jersey Village tonight. A shame. I have friends that look like me that come in this community. I've grown up in this community. Do they have to be afraid to come into this community, to visit my house, to spend time with me? No, they shouldn't have to. So I asked you all to do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'll just say, first of all, I don't have the authority to fire Chief Riggs, and I'm glad that I don't. In addition, I'll say that there's a process that we go through, and that process is currently being carried out. I think we can all agree that due process is one of the things that makes this country great, and I believe that, and I have all the faith in the world that the Jersey Village Police Department will carry that out according to all of the rules we have in place, and we'll let the process play itself out. Yes, sir, as will I. Thank you. Next card I have is from Jim Fields.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. My name is Jim Fields, candidate for mayor. My first topic is, what's lacking in this City Council is good leadership. We have problems in TERS 2. And I'll tell you why. We've got $500,000 wasted. The plans are changing. 60 developers contact us, no interest, and nothing documented why not. The developer has zero experience in stadium development, located in California, associated with the failed group Collaborate. All decisions and negotiations are held behind closed doors, not open to the public. Who knows why? Board members' names, legal names, are not required to be published. Here's how you fix this. When the plans change, like right now we have the stadium, contact the developers again. Find out what they like or don't like. Document it, then change the plans. Then ask them also, again, why weren't they interested? What do they need to get involved? The one that really bothers me a lot is there's no documented vetting process. Zero. We don't require local business, years in the business, nor experience. All decisions and negotiations should be open to the public, full disclosure. Board members' legal names should be published. And just to be sure, to make sure that this TERS 2 thing is what the citizens want, you can put in a non-binding referendum for them to vote on, just to be sure. TERS 3, approximately $1 million spent, no developers wanting to buy the property. I'm not sure we did our homework before we did that. Public not provide the pros and cons of the project. Right now we're losing, of course, revenue from the taxes on those properties. And this thing won't get paid off for 20 years. I didn't realize that until I attended a couple city council meetings. And the last but not least is integrity. I think that selling beer at the JV golf course is wrong. And we have Councilman Singleton said, no, that's okay, Backyard Grill is buying it. Well, they're contracted by the city, and I think that should stop. Last but not least, we've accumulated, $20 million over 12 or 15 years. I'd like to see a moratorium on the JV property taxes this year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim. The next comment card I have is from Rick Faircloth.
Good evening. Rick Faircloth, 16010 Lakeview. I'm going to be real brief. With the increased property evaluations going up, especially with the Harry County Appraisal District, I think that this council should this year, during their budget period, consider raising the over 65 exemption. I know we had one last year, but making that equal to the disability one that we have currently for the disability residents at this time. Harris County, for over 65, virtually your taxes go to zero. And I did some checking even in the city of Houston, that if you were a resident of the city of Houston over 65, your city taxes goes to zero. So think very strongly about this, because these evaluations are going up, and many of us who have retired just have to really watch that stuff very, very closely. So thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Rick. The next comment card I have is from Bruce Bowden.
Bruce Bowden on Lewis Street. I like what you said, Rick. I do agree with you. You wrote in your letter, Mayor, that the golf course made money this time. What's the term of the debt service on the 25-year? I think so, too. Okay, that means that for the next, at least 25, next 2 years, let's say, debt service is just a little over $580,000 a year, okay? So when you say it makes money, be careful of those words, because you have to pay not only for your expenses, you also have your debt service. Now for 23 years, roughly speaking, the $12 million less a little over $1.5 million, has not been paid. That's been absorbed by the taxpayers, 100%. All right? Not counting the other $1.6 million the city has donated to the golf course, not counting the other $4 million it lost on its way here. So I don't have a problem with the golf course. I do have a problem when you say it's making money when it's not. And the people in Jersey Village are owed that truth. It's bad enough Washington lies to us every day, but we don't need it here. So what I'd like to have going forward, if you want to do this, add your debt service into it. It's only $42,000 a month. Heck, that's not too bad. And if you only give average $75,000 or $76,000 a year that you've given so far out of your general fund, that'll pay for that assistant pro that you're going to be hiring. So let's get down to the grit. Let's tell the truth and not sit there and say it's making money when it hasn't and it isn't. Okay? Thank you.
Isabel, if you can remind me, that debt, it has debt that's related to things other than the golf course, correct? Great, thank you. Thank you, sir. Brings us to a public comment card from Mary Beth Salvaggio Guzetta.
Thank you for letting me come and talk. I wanted to come and talk about the short-term rentals that are popping up in Jersey Village. I live across the street from one, and I'm not happy about it. I have lived in Jersey Village for 45 years, and I have always felt safe and secure, but I don't, because I never know who is staying in the house across the street from me. They tie up the street with all the cars. I mean, I have seen probably 15 to 20 people going into this house, and I've seen minors, I've seen people with dogs that walk up and down the street, and it's just very unsettling because I don't feel safe anymore. I don't have small children anymore, but some of my neighbors do, and I mean, we don't know who these people are, and I don't understand why all of a sudden Jersey Village is now entertaining the idea of having these. What is the reason for it? We are not a destination location at all. I mean, why would somebody want to come and stay in Jersey Village for a couple of days? I don't know if they're moving on to some other place or what's going on, but it's really got me worried. And I can't help but look to see, and the house is rented all the time. And a lot of times it's in the middle of the week, and then it's in the weekend, and it's just getting very unsettling to me. I've never thought I ever wanted to move, but it kind of makes me want to move. And that's all I have to say. Thank you for letting me talk.
Absolutely, thank you. Of course, we've corresponded by email about this issue. We do have on the agenda for tonight an ordinance that we hope will help to curtail this. Just want to make sure you asked why do we want this. We don't want them. We're just doing what we can to regulate them. We'll get into more of a discussion, I think, coming up here in a bit, but the problem is the state and some court decisions have tied our hands on what we can or can't do. But we'll get into that discussion when we get to that item. Next card I have is from Mark Malloy.
My name's Mark Malloy. I live at 7803 Hamilton Circle, past City Council member of the City of Jersey Village, Texas. Citizens' comments for the 02/27/2023 City Council meeting. Please make my verbal comments and documents given to the City Secretary a permanent record of this meeting. I'm here tonight to talk to and ask questions of the Jersey Village government officials and the city manager about the White Oak Bayou Channel and the two other conveyance channels that run through the City of Jersey Village, Texas. I have done research and obtained Harris County documents that show the platted property ownership boundary lines for the property mentioned is, owned by the property owners to the center of the channel. The Harris County documents show that, like I said, the homeowners that live along the channel, the above-mentioned channels, own the property to the center of the channels. The property is their private property, and there's a 75-foot easement provided to the Harris County Flood Control District specifically for flood control by the property owners. The Jersey Village government worked to get a trail connection built from the east side of the Beltway 8 Harris County Toll Road underneath the bridges to connect a trail system to Jersey Village, Texas, traveling along the south bank of the White Oak Bayou and connecting to Clark Henry Park. Before the trail connection was built, there was almost no violations of the Harris County flood control laws. I am providing a picture of for each of you of the signs posted on each side of the Ecuador Street pedestrian walking bridge. Now that the Jersey Village government, in their infinite wisdom, has obtained their desired trail connection, there has been a tremendous increase in motorized dirt bike and all-terrain vehicles coming on the under-bridge trail connection riding into Clark Henry Park and up and down both sides of the White Oak Bayou on the private property of the homeowners that live along the channel. The Jersey Village property owners do not want this happening. Just before I came to this meeting, there was a motorized dirt bike coming from Clark Henry Park driving on the south side of the White Oak Bayou channel heading toward Lakeview. My question is, what is the Jersey Village government going to do to stop this problem that the Jersey Village government has caused? This last Friday, there was 3 ATVs with light bars driving along the south bank of the White Oak Bayou that came from the Jersey Village government's trail connection heading toward Lakeview at 11:30 p.m. in the dark. On 02/19/2023, last Sunday, 2 Sundays from, there were 3 ATVs traveling from Ecuador on the north side of the White Oak Bayou heading towards Lakeview. I called the Jersey Village Police Department during both of these incidents. One of the ATV riders drove onto the bank of the channel basically after I think the officers saw them from Lakeview heading back towards Ecuador, and ended up rolling over several times into the bottom of the channel, into the water, and was injured. So, you guys, you take and you decide that you think that we need an access from other areas into the city, and what's going on is that area on the east side of the Beltway is a large detention area, and there's been a lot of motorized vehicles that have ridden around in that area for years, and now you've gave the connection to them to come into the city of Jersey Village. So what you need to do is you need to get with Harris County Flood Control, and you need to put some kind of barriers on the trail under the bridge to stop the motorcycles and ATVs from coming into the city of Jersey Village. And so the other thing I want to talk about is on what Bruce Bowden said, and he talked about how much the debt service was on the golf course. And I talked to Isabel Cato many years ago and had her take and provide me the information on the adjusted debt service on the golf course, and the number that Bruce gave is the correct number. There is no additional added any other expense other than the golf course debt that's on that
Thank
document.
you, Mark. That's time. Next card I have is from Ernie Hewitt.
Good evening, members of City Council, Bobby, City Manager. My name is Ernie Hewitt. I live at 15917 Lakeview Drive since November 1989. Tonight I'm here to discuss item 7 of tonight's consent agenda to consider ordinance 2023-05, amending Chapter 18 of the Business Code of the Ordinance of City of Jersey Village. This is to add a new Article 6 entitled Short-Term Rental Registration in order to provide a permitting process and related regulations for the operation of short-term rentals in Jersey Village. We currently, to my knowledge, have 7 houses in Jersey Village that I'm aware of, which are being marketed through various internet sites such as VRBO and Airbnb. Additionally, several of these houses are also being offered as long-term rental houses for a month or more on a platform called Trulia for rents varying between $6,000 and $9,750 per month. Many residents of Jersey Village are unaware that this is actually going on. One of these houses is directly behind my house at 15917 Congo Street. I have sent numerous emails to the city manager and the city council on this subject, and residents of Jersey Village should understand that the original intent of the city of Jersey Village was to ensure that most of the lots other than the common areas were strictly for residential use only. This is evidenced by the following recorded documents in Harris County entitled Restrictions, Jersey Village Subdivision, October 20, 1954. Another document, Amendment of Restrictions, Certain Lots in Jersey Village, dated June 15, 1971, includes all lots in Congo on Lakeview Street. Finally, a final judgment also filed on real property record deeds for residential lot restriction dated February 1, 1972. Each one of these documents that recites above refer back to residential restriction outlined in Section 3 of the original restrictions document. These lots are for residential use only. Our deeds are for residential use, but clearly the VRBO houses are making money not to necessarily promote a quiet, independent residential neighborhood as originally intended. Problems of this nature have already been encountered and reiterated by Judy Bruner to the council in 2022 at 15917 Philippine Street. The house is advertised to hold 20 people by Airbnb. I urge the City Council tonight to set aside the consent agenda number 7 item for the following reasons. Our current understanding is that short-term rental registration permit fee will be in the neighborhood of only about $1,000 per year. This is not sufficient, as many of these houses would break even within 2 nights of rental revenue, and they'd be off to the races. The proposed amendments might also allow for as many as 12 cars to be allowed, which would not fit on an existing driveway. Is there a proposed cap in the number of houses in this legislation? The proposal, as we know, does not allow for a lottery drawing each year that we are aware of at this point. Cities such as San Diego control the number of STRs by imposing a cap on them, by having a lottery drawing each year for those capped units. So does this proposed amendment guarantee that a homeowner will be able to conduct a VRBO operation for consecutive years just by paying the annual fee? Other cities around the country, such as New Orleans and Miami, have forbidden VRBO rentals in residential areas, and where they are allowed, rules are being amended to further control what is allowed by creating interim zoning districts. South Shore Harbor, a subdivision of League City, was going to be banning STRs this past summer. They use the same legal firm that Jersey Village does, Olson & Olson, so I believe a complete vetting of the current environment around STRs is only appropriate. If one of these houses is rented for a period to exceed a month by a corporate entity, but less than 6 months, would any fees of any kind be collectible under Chapter 18 of the business ordinances? What constitutes a business entity, an LLC? How much extra time and expense are our city police and administrators with all of this cost? Has a study been done to match those proposed expenses with the fees being collected and the nuisance and the potential for increased crime in Jersey Village? I feel that as a citizen of Jersey Village, I need to have this issue brought under a public forum by itself, as I am pretty sure that informed citizens would oppose the allowance of STRs in Jersey Village. That's to say nothing of the legal ramifications for the city as well if they don't take this into their decision analysis. I appreciate the correspondence that I have received from all council members, including Bobby and Austin, on this subject. It has not been a one-way avenue of discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Ernie. And as you know, I suspect we will be discussing this at length shortly. So we'll have answers to many of those questions when we get to the agenda item. The last public comment card I have is for Kimberly A. Now.
My name is Kimberly Anal, and I live at 15601 Singapore Lane. As my 17th installment on Jersey Village history, 1988 pop culture included public, service, safety, and legal issues like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Murder, She Wrote, and The Flame by Cheap Trick, while 1989 included Batman, 60 Minutes, and We Didn't Start the Fire by Billy Joel. Jersey Village continued to progress as a growing city with dedicated employees, volunteers, and citizens. Sign designs for Clark Henry Park were presented by architect Harvey Urich, and the Recreation Committee would review options and advise their choices. Police uniforms were changed out for a new style as presented by Captain Campbell. City Manager Harry Neagle advised that West Gulf Bank was placed on the State Highway Department's plans for off-road construction so that it would extend from Beltway 8 to Highway 290. The City Pool's parking lot expansion had begun and would be completed in time for Founders Day. The Jersey Meadow Golf Course opened for business on February 15, 1988. Resolution 88-A passed authorizing a submission for a grant request for the Governor's Criminal Justice Division to fund a program known as Crime Prevention Major Crimes Unit for JVPD. Ordinances were requested and approved to lower the speed limit on Rio Grande from 30 to 25, while the installation of three-way stop signs for the intersections of Rio Grande at Village Drive and for Lakeview at Philippine, and for the four-way stop of Lakeview at Carlsbad. Homeowner Jeff Rosen requested the installation of stop signs on Wall Street at Carlsbad to combat the speeding problems, and the speed limit also was lowered from 30 to 25. The Jones Road widening project was to begin later in 1988. The city manager and police chief looked at 2 bids and liability insurance for department motorcycles. Due to the new Beltway 8, Argentina residents requested involvement in the sound wall design and construction. In April 1989, homeowner John Ross requested sidewalks be installed on Tahoe, North Tahoe, and Honolulu. Approval was given for the master preliminary plat of the Jersey Northwest subdivision at the prior Broyhill furniture site. In May 1989, consideration was given to extend Jones Road southward to FM 529, and the Beltway 8 feeder roads from 290 to I-10 were scheduled to open. Requests were made for a stop sign on Rio Grande at Smith and a stop sign at the exit of the golf course onto Rio Grande. The Recreation Committee invited everyone to a street dance party on Ecuador at Jersey for October 28th. Ordinance 89-23 prohibited the keeping of wild animals, such as a bobcat that was kept as a house pet. The fire department had a successful open house during National Fire Safety Week, October 8th through the 14th. Fire Chief Frank Marr presented to Mayor and Council a brass chrome-plated bell to be mounted on the new 1990 pumper truck, and the bell was donated by resident and volunteer fireman Charlie Wilson. As 2023 is turning into early spring with warmer weather, birds chirping, bees buzzing, and butterflies fluttering in the sunshine, Eric and I are looking forward to Founders Day, 4th of July, and more activities planned by the invaluable Parks and Recreation Committee. We also highly encourage our fellow villagers to enroll in the Combined Citizens Police and Fire Academy classes and the Community Emergency Response Team CERT class, sponsored by our fire department in conjunction with Harris County and FEMA. Not only can you learn how to use an extinguisher on a real fire or the steps taken during a traffic stop in the academy, but also safety precautions like turning off natural gas lines, disaster response tactics, first aid, and teamwork in the CERT class. Thank you.
Thank you, Kimberly. Those are all of the comment cards that I have, which brings us to the city manager's report. Austin, please.
Mayor and Council's, the report's in front of you. We're happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions for the city manager from council? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. I suspect I already know the answer to this question. Does any member of council wish to remove an item from the consent agenda for consideration in the regular agenda?
I'd like to remove item 7.
Okay, item 7 will be removed from the consent agenda and considered during the regular agenda. Does a council member want to remove any other item from the consent agenda? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion at this point on the modified consent agenda.
I move we adopt the consent agenda with the exception of F7.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All of those against? Any abstentions? The modified consent agenda passes unanimously. And so we will consider, moving on to the regular agenda, we will consider at the top what was previously on the consent agenda as item F7. Consider ordinance number 2023-05, amending Chapter 18, Businesses of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Jersey Village to add a new Article 6 entitled Short-Term Rental Registration in order to provide a permitting process and related regulations for the operation of short-term rentals, providing a penalty, providing for severability, providing for publication, and providing an effective date. Austin Blease, City Manager.
Mayor and Councilors, before you tonight, we have an ordinance here that would regulate short-term rentals. Currently, they are not regulated at all, so people can do what they want to and sign up their homes to be on sites like VRBO, Airbnb, and the like. A separate piece of this topic would be something in the zoning ordinance that would limit the closeness of these types of ordinances. The Planning and Zoning Commission will review that. I think we're looking for a meeting in March at some point to look at the first draft of that for them. If they like what they see there, it would likely be May, I would say, before it would come to council. We believe that this ordinance here tonight strikes a balance of protecting the interests of the community while also following case law that currently exists. There's several pieces of case law out there that refer to deed restrictions and the residential use that clearly state that those deed restrictions are not enforceable when it comes to short-term rentals. There's a lot of case law out there that kind of limits what we can do. It should also be noticed that there are several bills in the legislature right now that would limit the ability of cities to regulate many things, including short-term rentals, in a way that is more restrictive than the state. If those bills become law, the city will have very few tools to protect the interests of the city and the citizens when it comes to these types of issues. The ordinance is before council tonight. We're happy to answer specific questions that y'all might have.
Great. Thank you, Austin. A discussion amongst council on this ordinance.
I was just curious. I did notice that the application fee, I believe, is $250. Is there a reason and to the point of one of the members made a comment about that being low. Is there a reason it's as low as it is?
From an administrative standpoint, we don't feel that it would take a lot of administrative burden to process these applications and do that. There are fees also for inspections and those types of things that are above and beyond that $250. So the fees that are being associated with this, we feel should reasonably cover the costs that we would anticipate to incur.
One of the, you and I may have discussed this before, but would this be, I think somebody mentioned the total was 9 houses that they've counted in and around. Would this process be effective for them as well, those homes?
Yeah, so the way that's written now, that when you'll have to have the annual permit. So upon this being approved, then we'll have to require all those to have permits. It doesn't prohibit anything, it just requires that permit to be there.
So these fees would be essentially annual fees?
Correct. We had long discussion last time. There was a number of different things that we talked about requiring them to have. I don't see very many of those in here, but is that discussion going to come up during zoning or other code changes? So some of it will be zoning. I think we could cover most of them, but if there's specifics, council can always add those into the ordinance here tonight if there's something that we've missed.
Most of them were. I remember fire sprinkler being one of the things I brought up, but most of them were, and anything that I saw that wasn't, to me, felt like something that needed to be in zoning or codes and not this permit. I just want to clarify that there's other things that will be coming.
Does anybody else feel like that's a low number? I mean, I understand the concept of if, we're charging this amount because it's what it's going to cost us administratively, but I also feel like at some point, should it not be discussed, is that even considered to be a deterrent, when you look at your ROI?
I don't think there's going to be a number that we could reasonably sit here and charge and it be a deterrent. They are very profitable business.
Justin, is there under Texas law, are cities kind of just only restrained by the mere political process and how much they charge in fees for a permit or things along those lines? Or does it have to have some reasonable relation to the effort that the city expends to review and inspect and all of that?
That's going to be related to what the costs associated with the city. So reasonable fees to cover all, like Austin said, the administrative time that you're putting into it. So, in this kind of process, you're going to have staff time to inspections. That's what the inspection is for, to get a member of city staff to inspect the property. There's going to be some fee associated with the actual permit. There's going to be fees associated with the time that staff's doing to process those. And so, it's an administrative decision, but it's based on the time and the resources the city's putting into that particular issue.
I think for me, the issue, I'm sorry, Michelle, for me, the issue on this is that it costs more to get a permit to remodel your house versus someone to run a business out of their home. And I think that's a problem.
I agree with that. In our discussion last time, we talked about there being different tiers, possibly similar to how we do the hotels when there's a lot of calls. Is there anything we can legally write that if they have calls frequently to their property, that they're considered maybe an elevated risk? I don't know the correct term, so then when they renew next time, they're in a different category where it's significantly more than just your mom and pop that might want to rent out a house. But I agree, Jen, that I mean, I think the cost of the fee doesn't always have to just cover what is the administrative component in with y'all. I mean, like a dog permit or the other things you have. I mean, sometimes it is an arbitrary number that should deter or control.
The purpose of permit fees is not, this is not a fundraising activity anyway for the city. It's solely to cover the cost associated with the permit. And so the administrative decision there would be that number.
I hear your words, but what about the unforeseen amount of calls that we may or may not have for the police department? That is an unforeseen monetary amount.
And fees can get adjusted. I know that there's another fee adjustment ordinance on the agenda tonight. So at any time that what's been proposed, the $250 or whatever it is here, if that turns out to be much more than that, or maybe it's coming in too high, those can be adjusted at any time.
And we'll certainly track the process that we take administratively to, see if that number needs to be adjusted, just like we do with the other fees.
Let's say hypothetically, I'm just going to throw just to make the point a little bit more clear. Let's say instead of the $250 permit fee, let's say we want to make it $5,000. What does the city open itself up to liability from one of these applicants for an excessive fee?
It could, yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely could. So I think it would be reasonable to consider adding some time for expected enforcement and monitoring. I think that's a way we could raise it slightly. I don't think we're going to get anywhere near a number where it's financially prohibitive. Part of the reason it's more expensive to get a construction permit is there's a lot more work involved in the plans review and inspection process. This is a very simple permit, which can be compared to a couple of dog permits. I mean, there's not much in this permit for review.
Yeah, but I also think there's something about the fact of perception. And what you're saying here, is, to me, as a citizen, what this says to me is that the city cares more to charge its citizens when they're trying to do stuff to properly go through processes and take care of their homes in a great way versus someone that just wants to come in and change the aesthetic of our city to make money. And I agree. I don't think it's going to be a deterrent. I just think it's a little more of a statement about how we feel about our citizens versus this.
I think that's a big mischaracterization of what I'm trying to say here is we have to charge a fee based on the amount of work involved. And this permit does not have a lot of work involved. There's a lot more work in a construction permit.
Fee aside for a second, and I think it's a worthy topic and very interesting. We are planning on changing hotel tax on this. Is that a set rate, or could we have a separate rate for short-term rentals?
Yeah, so and that's just so the public understands. You already have a hotel occupancy tax that's applied, and that by state law defaults to these are already getting charged that anyway, and so that under that law, the hotel occupancy tax law, the city has a lot of authority to shut down these kind of rentals if they don't pay their hotel occupancy tax. So you already have that authority anyway. All this is really doing is creating a registration, system for you, so you can keep track of these things. And what Councilwoman Mitchum mentioned earlier is that, in your hotel classification, you do have a tier system. We don't have that built in here, but what you do have is through the registration process, you can keep track of any violations that have happened at a location. So if citizens calling and there was calls for service going to a property, if they've violated any of the terms that are put in the registration, we mark that, and then when they come to apply for their permit, that's reflected there. And so there's potential to deny a permit for that, not only from the hotel occupancy tax side, but through the permit. You're creating that ability right now to be able to track these users and see what they're doing to satisfy the terms that you put in.
What about some sort of fine structure? So if they violate noise ordinances, there's a fine associated with that.
So all of those still apply as they would for any other operator or any other homeowner in the city. It's just what this is going to do is create that registration process and let you be able to track it so that you know specifically what permit is the cause of the violation, and it gives you the ability to deny that permit.
I know that this was mentioned at when we first introduced this topic, but just to make it absolutely clear for anyone who may have missed it, let's say we just, instead of going through all of this process trying to regulate it, if we wanted to ban it, what keeps us from doing that?
So there's no clear state law now that you can ban them. I will say this: you could theoretically ban them. Like you could set that in your zoning code, you could require something to ban them. But the way that at least our firm is, would say that'd be a hard line to do, and you got to be ready for a fight if you did that. You'd also have to have some kind of grandfathering clause to the ones that exist. You can't shut those down. And so, because that has not been made clear, and there's not really been any good court cases that have declared that in any way. I mean, maybe the legislature will do something that makes it clear. Probably unlikely. So doing this kind of system has been proven to be fine for cities to do. You're still allowing them, but you can set reasonable regulations on them, and then again, the fees associated with that. It's still tied to your typical nuisance violations. All those are still they can be cited for all those things. We have in here too tied into your standard civil penalties of the code in general, so that if something happens, you get repeat offenders, that kind of thing. There's other things we can do to find them like we would for any other kind of issue.
And my understanding is there's a Texas court case, I think it was an appellate court, that found that short-term rentals do constitute a residential use. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's one of the comments in public comments was about deed restrictions, and so there's one of the court cases talks about. In general, what happened in HOA had a couple of one or two short-term rentals popped up. Their deed restrictions said that you could not have. It was limited to residential use only, and that was the fight, was that the short-term rental owners in that HOA said this is a residential use. The remainder of the HOA said no, it's not. The court said it is a residential use. If you want to ban short-term rentals in an HOA on the private side, you have to amend your deed restrictions to clearly say short-term rentals. You can't just say residential only. And then another case that was out, I think this came out in New Orleans, that was some cities in their regulations that said you have to have in order to operate a short-term rental, you have to be a homeowner-occupied structure. And they found you didn't have to do that. So you can have absentee owners running short-term rentals.
Can you bring all that up just to say that we're not going through this because we want these things here. We're doing what we can to address the issues that exist, knowing that we have our hands tied behind our back regarding just flat out banning them. Go ahead.
I had one question. Was there anything in the law that regulates us from having a cap?
Like a number?
Like we could have 10.
What Austin mentioned is that there's not a cap that we've seen, but there are some regulations that, and again, this is where the zoning will probably come in, where there's distance requirements to where a certain number allowed on certain or distance between them. But again, there's only one or two cities that have done that, and they are getting challenged. But what it looks like is if you can have reasonable distance requirements between certain short-term rentals, then that might be an allowed prohibition.
I want to recap that I'm not in support of these. I would love to find a way to get rid of them. And one of the reasons that I talked about last time of fire sprinkler systems is if you spend the night in a hotel in Jersey Village, you have to be underneath the fire sprinkler system. It's been that way for years. I would like to see it put in the zoning and codes for these type of structures, and I think we can amend the fire code and zoning appropriately to make that happen. Then you're looking at an entry point. Because these homes are already built, you do a retrofit of the structure, you're looking at a cost of $16,000, $20,000 to retrofit the building to get it done. There's significant investment in that. That's one of the reasons I don't think we should stick our head out and risk a ridiculously high permit fee.
moving away from the house and onto the street. I know public parking is available on the street, provided you're not parking in a no parking zone, etc. But if we're getting 12 cars per house, that seems a little excessive. Obviously, it wasn't considered or placed in the ordinance. Is anyone on council or has staff considered something that do we have any available avenues to limit that or permit those cars or something of that nature? Put up no parking signs in front of those short-term rental houses?
So you'd have to amend, probably that'd be a zoning issue we'd have to do. But right now, since I'm assuming that most of these are in single-family residential neighborhoods where they're not something special, so then it's the standard, parking requirements of whatever zone they're in apply.
It's a public street. We don't currently have rules. Somebody from Bel Air can park their car here as long as they don't park it for more than 24 hours.
I have a little bit of a comment. So I do like that we included you have to have on file the email, phone number, and a contact of a local person available 24 hours, and they have to respond within 1 hour of a complaint. My question would be to the people who spoke today. I don't know if I'm allowed to do that, but I am asking. Do you feel like that would solve the main issue on your street? That if you were able to have a response within an hour, and then if there were so many violations under this code, we get to pull permit or revoke permit. Do you feel like that would solve any of the issues that you're having as a community member?
Which may be advertised as only as many as 20 people. So basically, it's a party house.
Well, the house across the street, they have a pool. They just put in a hot tub. They completely don't use their garage as a garage. It is abandoned.
Sure. The difficulty is going to become there are a lot of different regulations that we could put in. The last thing we want to do, however, is put in regulations that are, well, first of all, there are some regulations we can't do for constitutional reasons. But also, even if we could regulate something, we always want to make sure that a regulation we put in place is enforceable. You have to be able to, if you put in a rule in place, but you can never reasonably catch somebody doing it, then what good does the rule do? And so, as y'all heard us say, obviously the easy thing would be to ban them, right? Not really an option. And so we're focusing on ways that we can solve the problems that exist. But we also have to keep in mind that we do have existing ordinances in place where if somebody's doing something that's already against our existing code of ordinances, then that's something we can do something about right now. And so I think for some of these things, if there's some suspicious activity that's taking place, that's when you call JVPD, call the non-emergency line, let them know what's going on, and they'll at least take a look. And if they have probable cause or reasonable suspicion that there's something going on that's against one of our ordinances or some other law, then they'll have the ability to act. This would be the same, and I understand the whole not knowing your neighbor, because they're there a day or two and then they're gone. But, at the end of the day, that's, again, not something that we can do something about inherently, but we can, again, remain vigilant, keep our eyes and ears out, and make sure that we're covering that. Didn't mean to start a dialogue going back and forth, folks. And this is usually why we don't do that, because then it turns into this is.
Sorry.
If we need to,
I just wanted to make sure that there was no extra safety issues that we didn't address, and it sounds like everything we have at least is in your favor, that if you thought there was underage or noise, that then you could call. They have to respond within an hour, and at least it would be ticked on their permit for future. So I was just making sure there was not any pertinent safety issues. Apologize for that.
Yeah, what I was going to say is, obviously, several of you have already reached out by email to express concerns. I don't expect that this ordinance is going to be the end-all, be-all even on this subject matter. Obviously, we mentioned that there's still a zoning ordinance to come. There are some things that we have to do via the zoning ordinance, and we have to take a different process than we do this permitting process. Even if maybe we don't integrate an idea that you think may be good now, I think it's better to get something on the books to start at least that review process and make sure that we're keeping some kind of eye on it, because right now there's no permitting process whatsoever. And as time goes on and we start to look at issues that arise, or citizens come forward and say, well, what about this? This might be something that we could do. If that's something that's workable, I'm more than happy to go back and look at this ordinance again and again and again until we get it right and address the issues we can address.
Not that we would want to add another layer of admin, but given that it's within the core of city, could you have like a central registration desk that every time that house is rented, they have to come to City Hall to pick up a key, log the individuals that are planning to be there? I know it's added extra burden on us, but it's also an added extra burden on whoever's renting the house, and it gives us a way to track who's coming in and out in case we do have a safety or crime issue. We have transparency into who's on that premises and property to a certain degree.
I've never seen a city do that. I mean, we can look into it and see. Top of my head, probably one thing we'll run into is that you're not dealing with property owners at that point. You're dealing with the renters, and so that might be an issue. And here, we're dealing with the property owner, the one that has the authority to rent the house, and that's where the registrations. But we can look into that and see.
Yeah, in my reading, one of the concerns also becomes, I've seen several of these cases where the cities get challenged on, then you start opening up other Pandora's box of constitutional issues such as privacy, things of that nature. I think anything that we would do of that nature, that we would look at adding additional layers, obviously it needs to be vetted and make sure that we're not throwing ourselves into a potential lawsuit.
Speaking of enforceable, one of the things I wanted to ask just about is Section B2, the telephone number of a local contact person who can respond in person within 1 hour to complaints regarding the condition. Is that sufficient to say they have to be on property within an hour, or can I respond to a complaint via telephone and calling my tenant saying, hey, you shouldn't do that?
I mean, that's just, it's not for on property, because there could be some issue if there's a noise complaint or something like that, and we'll have the name of the property owner, we'll have this name of this contact, we can get police to come out and do something like that, or if it needs to be something, there's water main breaks or something like that, somebody that can handle it, and that's the point of that provision. But if you want something like a local physical presence on the property within a certain time, we can do that.
Is there a way to rewrite it so that we can say the permit requires them to be physically there on the property within an hour? If the police determine hey, you can handle this by phone, then they can waive that. They're at that event, but then we have the language that says that we can enforce that says, no, you got to be here. And that's why you require it in the law that says they have to have a local person that can be here, because you have to. The more strict we can write it, the harder it is to do it.
I understand that we kind of open the door there to people commenting, and that's usually why we don't do that. Again, I'm more than happy to speak with people afterwards to get additional feedback, and again, like I said, this is not set in stone. We will go back and revisit things where we can, but if we start it open up to everyone, we'll be here till 3 in the morning. But your feedback will definitely be welcome all throughout this process as we continue to address this issue.
I'm sorry, Austin, were you going to?
So, Mayor or Councilor Singleton, if you wanted to make an amendment to the ordinance, you had to correct 18204B2, who can respond in person, and then insert the words on premise within 1 hour. Is what I would recommend for an amendment to that.
I think that works. Is that? I think we've got consensus on that. Okay.
Fine by me. Something else, and I'm not sure if it would be regulated in other zoning codes vis-a-vis hotel or whatnot, but insurance requirements. I noticed that was
you can make that part of the permit process, and I thought we actually had that in here, but if we don't, then we can add insurance too.
That's going to probably be a more complicated amendment, unless you've got some language you can send to me.
When it comes to making the amendment, we can just say it as amendment is contemplated here, and so it's insurance requirements of somebody being on premise.
Yeah, wouldn't we would need to define those amounts, right?
Unless we're good with allowing the city to set those.
I mean, you use the standard, commercial insurance. So.
Just to be sure, Lori, remind me, do we, on this ordinance, were there publication requirements, or is that really only on the zoning? Okay, so so if we came back and revise, if we did an amendment to the ordinance in a month, then we're not creating.
That's correct.
Okay.
You can just put it on the next agenda if you.
Why don't we do that? I would rather than trying to piecemeal that, let's for the next regular agenda, or the next time, whatever the next time we meet. I guess you might need till the next regular session. To put together some insurance requirements, kind of look at some levels and requirements.
And we can look at that of your idea about having like a central registration point, and then Councilman Singleton, if you want to give us the extra stuff that you were wanting, and as far as fire suppression and all that.
Can we just say have the same fire suppression requirements as exist for other lodging facilities in the city?
It's been a long time since I've done that business, Chief Bitts. I don't remember. Reading at it, I think this would actually be an R3 unless we were able to unless we redefined what an R3 is.
I'd have to look at it, but Texas legislature back in 2012, House Bill 738 adopted Section 250.011, not allowing municipalities to make people put residential sprinklers in. So I'd have to look at what the code says on that.
So it does. I haven't read that in a while because I don't do this. I thought that applied to R3s and single families, and if we changed the definition and made it an R1, because we require it for boarding homes, which is an R4. So if we're going to push this to another month, to March 20th, then we can talk about it.
I mean, I think we should still pass the ordinance so that we can get at least a foot in the door to start looking into these things, but we can look at amending it later.
Okay. Then if we're going to pass this, which I agree, I think we should take action. I think we should put in there the amendment that I talked about on premise, and then have them put in the insurance requirement, and if we don't like what the city does, then we make that amendment. Because I think we should add it in there, and I trust they're going to go through and look at standards and provide a reasonable insurance requirement. I don't think I need to see that to give my personal check off to whatever the city comes up with. If I don't like it, then we'll amend it.
So I've pulled up some language on insurance from another city. They say it shall be unlawful for the owner of premise operating as a short-term rental to operate without host protection or other liability insurance commensurate with the operations of the short-term rental that provides coverage of up to $1 million per occurrence. Certificate of insurance must be on file with the administrator. Proof of insurance shall be required at the time of application, and notice of cancellation of insurance must be made to the administrator within 30 days.
And that's pretty standard. I figured it would be about $1 million, and that's pretty standard.
So if somebody would want to add that in there, we can
I think that needs to be added. And again, if it needs to be amended later, that's fine, but it needs to go in now, I think.
Okay. It sounds like we've got consensus on adding that in as well.
Yeah. And I know I broke protocol by asking some opinions, but I know when you email, we can't reply all, so I don't get to see what my colleagues think about some things, and so I don't think we're going to be here till 3 a.m. But if you have anything else that did not get discussed, will you email all of us, and we can just get on the same page there?
I would say that's a good general. I get a lot of emails that are just sent to me or just sent to me in Austin. I would encourage anybody that emails about any issue, don't just send it to me. Send it to everyone, because I can't forward it on to the rest of them, because that's the Texas Open Meetings Act violation. But you can. Any other issues that any council member wanted to see addressed in this first go-around?
This is along the lines, and I think it should be tabled, but anything dealing with pools and pool and safety requirements, I think there could be a distinction between commercial pools or hotel pools versus residential pools in terms of equipment or safety standards or something like that. And I think that should be at least looked into by staff if we can.
I do know that other states have requirements on that, and so I would be very hopeful that we have that here, that would be something we could add.
Isn't that covered under 18205A10 pool safety? I know it's generic pool safety, but there's a lot of generics on here that have a lot of code behind those generic words.
Yeah, I think pool safety, especially in this case, refers to I believe it's the International Pool and Spa Safety Code that we have that applies to all residential homes. So that would be applicable here. I don't know what the differences are between residential and commercial on that piece, but we could look at that.
That's what I'd like to do.
One more thing, and then I'll stop. Also wanted to make note that they have to submit all of their advertisements to the city for the permit. So if they are advertising that it holds 50 people, then they would be denied because it would go against it. Or if you find it's advertised on a place that they did not indicate, send that right along.
I do have a quick question, if you don't mind. So let's say one of these people, we find violations. Does that mean we have to follow the same extraordinarily long process of code violations?
So it does talk about Section 207, the permit revocation, where the administrator has the opportunity, if they determine that the rental poses a serious threat to the public health, safety, or welfare, to revoke the permit.
But what's the timeline on that? Like I said, is the timeline on that, is that an immediate response? Can that be an immediate response, or is that one of those things where we have to go through like other code stuff where you send a written notice, you wait X amount of days, then we got to talk about it, and if they say they're going to do it, you get more time, and next thing you know, it's like 10 years.
The way it's structured now, it gives authority to I assume is Austin, the administrator, to make that decision. Yeah, it could be immediately if there was a.
Okay. Any Any further additions? Again, keeping in mind we're going to be continuing to hone this and refine it.
So what I had, just for the notes I was taking, so you prove it now with two amendments, essentially, that addresses insurance requirements, which are the common, basic commercial insurance, and then to have an on-site responder to be able to be on site within an hour.
Correct. I think those are the two additions that we agreed to.
And then we're going to look at, for the next time, the three notes are some kind of central registry, if that's been attempted anywhere, and see what we could do. Something addressing the pools, make sure we're clear on what that is, and then some fire suppression clarity.
Correct. I think that is our to-do list for further refining.
Before you seek a motion, can I just like to? You've heard us mention several times we're restricted by case law, but in fact the state legislature. So I encourage you to, if this is a concern of yours, to contact your legislatures. Paul Bentoncourt's our state senator. Lacey Hull's our new state rep. Contact our old state rep too, and let them know your concerns and see what they can do. At the least, they can vote against anything that's coming down the pipe or vote for it, whatever it may be, and perhaps they could even propose legislation if the deadline's not passed.
I think that's a good point. I've been beating the drum about Austin paring back local control for cities. I mean, local control across the board, but particularly for cities where Austin.
City of Austin, not.
When I say Austin, I mean the state capital. I'm using it colloquially like you would use Washington to refer to the federal government. Because they always like to refer to Washington, how Washington's infringing on the rights of the states, but and I recognize that it's not quite the same thing in terms of legal structure, but then they turn around and they start paring down the ability for all of you to be able to govern yourselves locally. If the principle is that people who are closer to the citizenry have a better sense of how to govern adequately, that principle ought to apply regardless of whether you're talking about somebody in Washington regulating Texans or someone, the state representative, member of the House from Lubbock telling people in Jersey Village what they can or can't do. It's the principle still stands. And unfortunately, these are the things we've been pushing back on for years now, and we definitely need your help on those sorts of things because these are the consequences. You lose the ability to do certain things, and so you have to get even more creative on how you address the issues that people bring to you. Unless anyone else had anything else to add, I think a motion would be entertained at this point.
I move that we approve ordinance 2023-05, amending section 18204B2 to include the words on premise, in person on premise, and further amend the ordinance to include insurance requirements, including liability of coverage up to $1 million per occurrence.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Is that sufficient for the amendments? Okay, great. All right. All those in favor? All of those against? Any abstentions? The ordinance passes unanimously. So that brings us to the one item we had on the regular agenda to begin with, which is consider resolution number 2023-08, authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Harris County for the Traffic Signal Controller Cabinet Beautification Program. Austin Blease, city manager.
Mayor and councilors, the city has been approached by the Acton Academy Sci-Fair Art Club to paint a traffic control box located within the city. As the city does not own any of those, it would have to be one of the boxes owned and operated by TxDOT or Harris County. Harris County is an easy process to follow. It will simply be they require an agreement of concurrence with the city. The county has the specifications that they require for these types of things as well. Painting traffic control boxes is a simple but effective way to improve the aesthetic appeal of a city. These boxes, which are typically used to house traffic control equipment, often can be seen as eyesores and detractors from the overall appearance of the community. By painting these boxes with vibrant colors and engaging designs, they can become visually appealing elements of art to our urban landscape. The area, the box located that's being proposed is at the corner of Jones Road and Seattle Slough. It's near where Acton Academy Sci-Fair is located. We'll give easy access for the art club there to get to that location. We do have Miss Corey from the art club who is here tonight if the council would like to ask her any questions. And they did provide some draft artwork of what it would look like. They had a meeting here at City Hall where people could come in and vote for designs and everything. And the pages 200 and 202 have that initial renderings.
Okay, great. Thank you. Discussion amongst council.
I think this is just the best thing. I really appreciate Acton's involvement in the community. This is not the first or second or third thing they've done to stay involved in. I really do appreciate you all.
Thank you. Thank you for...
Also, the armadillo wins my heart.
No, I think it's a great idea because those boxes are ugly. So anything to make them a little bit more enjoyable to look at would be fantastic.
Makes me wish we had more traffic signals around.
We do have plenty of other boxes with text out and everything that we can explore doing future partnerships with either this art club or post high school, a wide variety of opportunities there.
I'd love to have him come do the cable box in my backyard.
You could talk to Miss Corey about that.
Well, I would hope that this would set a precedent and we would be able to help local school districts do the same, and then it could just keep expanding so that the schools are always involved.
So all of these drawings would be on different sides. I love it.
And they're practicing, so it'll look really good.
Any further discussion or questions from council?
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I move to approve resolution number 2023-08.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All of those against? Any abstentions? The resolution passes unanimously. Okay, that brings us to mayor and council comments. I am going to start down on this end with Mayor Pro Tem Mitchum.
I'll start off by wishing Mr. Bobby a happy, happy, happy birthday. A little round of
Thank you.
spending his birthday with us. How nice of him. No, thank you for letting me have some open discussion. I appreciate you.
Councilmember Shepherd.
I'm usually pretty quiet, but I wanted to offer a different perspective on the golf course. I know we've had a lot of discussion over the months and years about it being profitable or not profitable, but from a different perspective is due to the Wall Street project and the berm project, it is a key component of our flood mitigation program. So it not only provides benefit to those who play golf, it provides benefit to all of the community and will hopefully provide protection to us should we have rain events that we've had in the past. So hopefully, when people think about the golf course, it's more than just a profitable or non-profitable business. It's a benefit to the community and helping with our flood mitigation. So I just wanted to bring that up.
Councilmember Wasson.
First, congratulations to our Employee of the Month. I know it's a hard choice for staff to select because we have a lot of outstanding employees and we're an outstanding place to work. Wanted to thank our scouts for attending. I know a lot of your brethren have left, but thank you guys for coming and being patient with the slow wheels of government churning and watching it in person. And then, speaking of uniforms, I noticed that Chief Bitts and company have applied or asking for permission, and we've granted it through the consent agenda to apply for another SAFER grant. I think this is, should it be approved by FEMA, this is another way where we're going after grants that maybe we normally wouldn't have, and bringing in other sources of revenue and allowing us to do more with less. So, thank you.
Councilmember Singleton.
Going to echo pretty much what Drew said. Congrats to Kim. Kim's been transformational for our police department. And when I started working in property and evidence, she was someone that was brought up as a recommended contact by numerous people throughout the state and locally. She was even recommended to me by a sitting magistrate in the district attorney's office. She does great work, and it's very well known. Scouts, I agree with Drew. Thank you for taking your time to be here and learning about the process.
Councilmember McCray.
Mainly, I just want to remind everybody that Founders Day is coming up. So make sure you get onto the city website and look and buy your wristbands, passes, whatever we're choosing to call them. Also, just a shout out to anybody that is interested at all in summer swim team. The JV Stars registration opened up this past weekend. So, yay. And that's it.
All right. Thank you to everyone who came out, and as I mentioned earlier, thank you to everyone who's reached out regarding whether it's an issue we discussed here or issues that we've discussed at other meetings. Again, definitely always continue to reach out, not just to me, but to all of our council members, because we all want to make sure that we all get the same understanding, the same concerns, the same questions, so that we're all on the same page as far as your concerns and the issues that you're facing. And I also wanted to echo a welcome to our scouts. As an Eagle Scout myself, I've sat metaphorically where you guys are. I'm sure you're probably working on your citizenship in the community merit badge. So if you guys need because I think it's still a requirement that you have to talk to a local official about the role that they play in the community. Feel free to give me a call. Just call City Hall. They'll put you in touch with me, and more than happy to help you guys out with that requirement as well. So with that, I believe we have an executive session. So we're going to move to that part of the agenda. The City Council is now going to retire to a closed session at 8:22 p.m. pursuant to the Texas Open Meetings Act, Section 551.087, deliberation regarding economic development negotiations, Section 551.072, deliberations about real property, and Section 551.071, consultations with attorney, in connection with the following items. 1, pursuant to the Texas Open Meetings Act, Section 551.087, deliberation regarding economic development negotiations, Section 551.072, deliberations about real property, and Section 551.071, consultations with attorney, a closed meeting to deliberate information from a business prospect that the city seeks to locate in Jersey Village, TERS number 2, and economic development negotiations, including the possible purchase, exchange, or value of real property related thereto. And item number 2, pursuant to the Texas Open Meeting Act, Section 551.072, deliberations about real property, and Section 551.071, consultations with attorney, a closed meeting to deliberate the potential and possible purchase, exchange, sale, or value of real property located within TERS 3. We will return to open session and continue with the remainder of tonight's agenda after the closed session deliberations are concluded. The closed session was adjourned at 9:45 p.m. and no official action or vote was conducted during the closed session. That brings us to item L, regular session continued. Item L1, discuss and take appropriate action regarding items discussed in closed session regarding the potential and possible sale, exchange, or value of real property located within TERS 3.
I move to direct the city manager to list the properties at 15417 Jersey Drive, 15418 Jersey Drive, 15517 Jersey Drive, 15525 Jersey Drive for sealed bid, and the stipulation new construction on the lot shall begin within 1 year of the purchase date.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All of those against? Any abstentions? The motion passes unanimously. I believe you have a second motion.
I move to authorize the sale of the lot at 15522 Jersey Drive to the previous owner, Ron D'Amico, for the price discussed in executive session.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All of those against? Any abstentions? The motion passes unanimously. All right, meeting adjourned.